Hi, everyone, and welcome to part three of my workshop series where I'm just sharing some PowerPoints that I was able to share with other parents and caregivers. So I hope you learned something, and please let me know if you have any questions or comments, anything like that. I would love to hear back from you all. So, this slide in particular is going to discuss about things to really understand when considering trauma. And we really chose these specific ones because this is something that was commonly brought up whenever I worked with my kiddos and then their parents, right? So the first one is that trauma really is an internal experience of the event, and that's going to dictate like how severe and what kind of trauma responses a child or someone may have. So I think an example would be thinking about maybe those of us that have been hit a lot when we were younger, and we get to that notion of, well, I was hit as a child and look how I turned out. Okay, you may be great. I mean, you might want to look a little deeper because there might be some things there, right, that are responses to being hit. Maybe you flinch a little, I don't know. But let's say now your kid's getting hit, or getting a spanking, anything like that. How they perceive that is going to probably be different to how you perceived it. Another example would be a kid is walking in the classroom, they're walking up front to give a presentation. Maybe they trip and fall a little bit, and the class laughs at them, and they get up and they're like, ah, that's funny, yeah, I get it. They laugh it off, and a little traumatic, but they're not really perceiving it as that. They can go with that. We'll take another kid that did that, right? And maybe to them, it's one of the most mortifying experiences that they have ever encountered. And now maybe they start to develop anxiety. Maybe they don't want to go to school anymore. All these symptoms start showing up. So again, it's an internal experience. It can't be, well, I made it, or here I am and I did fine. They should be too. Please stop thinking that way. Understand that our brains are different, okay? So the next thing that we're going to talk about is that trauma can really show up right after an event occurred, or it could show up years later. All right, so I think about military veterans. So maybe they've gone through war, they've gone through a lot of trauma, maybe anything like that. So they are able to go through the years and they'll be fine, right? And then maybe they get out, and then they think they're fine, and then there's something that reminds them of a gun or a certain person that did them wrong. Well, that brain is going to remember that, and then all of a sudden, I call it opening Pandora's box. Those symptoms start coming up. Oh my gosh, now they start having flashbacks. Now they notice that they have a lot of high anxiety, some panic attacks, anything like that. This could happen years later, and yes, I've seen it. A lot of times it's because our brain also can disassociate, which means that maybe a really traumatic event had happened, or maybe you lived through a lot of traumatic events or ongoing stress, anything like that, and the brain is just so beautiful and it tried to protect you, so it would take you out of your body, right? That's called disassociation. In the time, it was great because it protected you, but now it's becoming a maladaptive way of coping, and that's when people start coming to therapy and work through that. So on to the third one is, this is huge. We need to consider the age of when the potentially traumatic experience occurred. So what does that mean? I know that a lot of us, including myself, at one time thought, oh, they're so little, they're not going to remember what happened here. They don't understand. Well, the science is out, y'all. One way or another, the brain and the body's going to remember. And so if there is a child that was experiencing trauma at a very young age, let's say from birth all the way to like 5 years old, and then they get out of that situation, maybe they were in an abusive, neglective situation, then they get out of it, they are more likely to come out with a lot of traumatic symptoms like high anxiety, depression, anything like that, because their brain from day one has learned to survive that way, because our brain is beautiful like that. It's protected you. So they might grow up having all these problems, maybe turn to substance use, engage in risky behaviors, anything like that, because that's what their brain was bred to do, honestly. And so that's going to be different than someone like an adult, right, that had experienced a trauma as well. They will have symptoms, of course, and chances are that they may heal, depending on how their past is, a lot faster and cope better with less severe symptoms than this kid who, from 0 to 5 years old, was treated so horribly, even if the rest of their life was fantastic with the best support. So that is important, y'all. The age does matter, and how we talk and what our children see matters. So those are the main things that I really want to hit upon. I hope you learned something. Please, again, let me know if you have any questions or comments, and we will continue the next segment of the workshop a little later.